This is Ethan Stubbs, and welcome back to Whitetail 365. Today is June 22nd, and it is 105 degrees outside, so I'm looking for any excuse not to spend any time outside and do all of my whitetail scouting legwork inside in this air-conditioned office. And I figured what better time to go over some e-scouting tips and techniques than right now. I know if you guys are anything like me, this time of the year you're getting new permission on pieces, you're dialing in your farm from last year, or maybe you're scouting a completely new area that you've never been to before. And so, like I mentioned, I just want to go over a few things that I look for in my setups, and hopefully it helps you guys become more effective this fall. Scouting and e-scouting in general can kind of be a tall task, just because a lot of times when we're going to a new spot or hunting an old spot, we're getting a lot of information at one time, and it makes for things to be really difficult and confusing, and it doesn't really need to be that way. One thing we can really do to stop this, if you're going to a new spot specifically, is pick a county, pick a township, and pick a town. Really narrow down your focus. That way, you're able to spend a lot of your times looking at farms you're actually going to be able to hunt, and you're not getting overwhelmed at all. After you found the area that you want to focus on, what I'm going to do is study and try to find areas of bedding in relation to food. Bedding is kind of king in terms of how you can get into your stands, where to hunt, why you're hunting in that area, stand locations. So what better time to do it than right off the rip and really get a good idea. So I'm going to pull up Onyx maps here, and I'm going to turn on the topography and satellite mode. That's a cool feature where you can see its regular satellite map, so you can get kind of the layout of the land, but also you can see the topography lines, and you'll be able to pick apart the land and how deer will be using them based on path of least resistance. So one of the spots that I picked, because I'm pretty familiar with hunting big hill country and timber country whitetail, is this big long bedding ridge. These deer like to bed all the way throughout the ridge on the leeward facing side of the hill, about a third of the way down, and a lot of times they'll position their bedding in relation to the wind. So in this situation, a northwest wind is blowing from where my cursor is this way. And a lot of times the deer, like elk or any other big game species, will bed looking down the hill with the wind at their back. That way they're safe from almost all predators and they really feel invincible. So I'm going to look for these big ridges, and then after I find the ridges, I'm going to find a sub ridge, and that's where a lot of times these bucks like to bed. So in this situation, each one of these lines is 20 feet in elevation change. You can see every time it makes a little U shape, that's going to be a ridge. And so I'm thinking that a buck or deer in general will be bedded just right off these little points facing the downward side of the hill. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify that as an area of interest. And so I'm going to go over here and do a draw shape, and then I'm just going to draw a little, probably quarter acre to an acre size circle, and I'm going to label these bedding. It's important to stay really organized with your scouting, because you'll have a map that looks like chicken scratch if you're not paying attention. So if at all you can start off on the right foot and get everything labeled, that's going to be perfect. So I'm going to do all bedding labeled red and shaded yellow in the inside. So as we zoom out, we can see that there's some sort of food source and water down here in the bottom, which makes good sense to why the deer are bedded to where they are. They can overlook the food, the water's already there, they basically have the best of both worlds right there. I'm also going to look right here. I found another secondary ridge, just almost parallel on the other side of this little ridge here, same topography line, just about 50 yards to the east of where I'm at. So that's another probably 1/10 of an acre spot that I would identify as bedding, and I'm going to continue to look for areas just like this, and I believe that we'll find deer in these areas. Alright, so now I've identified a few different bedding areas in one spot. I'm looking at one farm, but right now I'm really looking at one area of one farm. And like I mentioned, we're kind of dumbing it down, that way we're not getting overwhelmed. So we got the bedding areas identified on this part of the farm, and I'm really looking for a thermal hub right now. This is going to be a perfect spot to put a trail camera come the fall, and you're going to get deer pictures all day, all night, as these deer are watching this thermal hub, and they're going to be bedded above it. I know Jared and myself have talked about that quite a bit in terms of scouting earlier this spring, And so it's important to see how this works on a map. If you hold down your control key and move your cursor, you can actually get a 3D layout of the land, and that'll also help you identify a thermal hub. In my mind, what I'm looking for is multiple different ridges overlooking one main draw, and where the draw split will be the thermal hub. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and add a waypoint, drop this in here, and then I'm going to look for the scrape feature by searching it. And then, like I mentioned, type in thermal hub to be organized, and that should be perfect. There should be a lot of whitetails in there, and I really envision myself putting a camera down there and getting a great inventory of all the bucks that are in the area. And last but not least, I'm going to use the information I've just found and try to find a spot to put a stand. So when I'm doing that, I'm taking these bedding areas into account, and I'm thinking, what's my access? What wind direction can I hunt this stand on? And so I'm going to try to look for a spot that's going to be downwind of the bedding area. And so in rut, these bucks are going to be cruising through this spot, able to scent check these other hills, and that way, you should have really good luck all day. So I'm going to be over here on this little sub ridge. Looks perfect. Looks like this area flattens out right here. It is a ditch that runs up, and so what I envision is these bucks are going to cruise from this point over this little saddle, scent check this hillside as it blows across the valley the whole time on a northwest wind or northeast wind or north wind. And so I'm going to add another point right here as an area of interest for a tree stand. I know I can get in quickly, quietly, and without bumping deer. I'm going to be on the downwind side of the bedding area, and I know that bucks are going to be cruising that using the path of least resistance, but also trying to find these does during the rut when they're crazy. So that's a really quick way of e-scouting that I use. Obviously, e-scouting takes a lot of time and energy, and if you guys have any questions at all, please reach out. I'm happy to help dissect any pieces you guys have, but that's kind of the strategy I use. I hope this helps, and good luck this fall.